So yeah, I think come winter time, mate, I think the same thing's probably going to happen again, mate. They're going to be back to their shenanigans. You know what I mean? They're going to be up to their shenanigans again, mate, with this whole, you know.
Oh no, not
you
again.
You never know, mate. They might be talking about the big C, the big return of the big C again. You know, coming back. You know, and they're talking about, you know.
Well, so that shutdown didn't really affect my life. Actually, I quite enjoyed it. Actually, I quite a few parties. You did not, did I? You know, this did not affect me whatsoever. I mean, I just enjoyed every minute of it. To be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think it just depends on your circumstances, you know.
Yeah.
In life, and I thought it was great actually seeing families with their children again. You know, they weren't going to school. I quite enjoyed that.
I had to do like we were talking about earlier, like not long ago. During the whole shutdown thingy, not to go too much off topic, but
no,
I had to do homeschooling with my son 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. I had to make sure that he was on the laptop because like they had Zoom classes. They were using like an app called Zoom, which is like a group thing where you can have all be together and online. And I used to have to put him on these Zoom classes essentially every day. And sometimes I'd have to sit with him during the classes, not all of them, but I'd have to make sure I was up to make sure that he was ready to sit down in front of the computer, make sure it's all logged in and he's online and he can, he's ready, because essentially they'll send you a code every morning so that you can join the class essentially. So you have to type that code in, and it's a little bit of a palaver, but whatever. So 5 days a week I had to stay home to do that. I couldn't go to work during that time, if you see what I mean. Because one of us, like my wife, did nights, if you see what I mean. And at the time, she wasn't able to change. She works days now, but at the time she was asking to work days for But they said to her there was no vacancies available, and as soon as one came up, obviously she would be able to work days, if you see what I mean. So during that time, obviously I was the one that was working days, so I had to basically say to my job at the time, I'm sorry, but I can't at the moment. Schools are closed, everything's closed. I don't have a choice. I'm not able to work at the moment. One of us had to be at home because he's at school. Kids don't go to school even though it's online. You get in trouble.
So it kind of affected you a little bit.
It did affect obviously the amount of money that I was able to bring in every month. If you see what I mean, because I wasn't used to. I was used to earning a certain amount of money every month, and then that stopped for like 9 months or a year, however long it was that they did schools were closed, So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't sort of like affect me because I didn't really have any children to take to school, nothing to, you know what I mean? So, I didn't see any of that, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But don't get me wrong, it was still nice in a way because like you said that you get more time at home with your kids, and then obviously by the time he's finished at 3 o'clock, then the day's finished kind of thing as well. If you see what I mean, and then you can all be together. You know what I mean, you're together during the day anyway, because even though he's still on the computer, whatever, you still might have lunch. I still have to stop and have a lunch break, so to speak. At some point, and then you can have lunch together. It's still nicer. But obviously, it does have an effect on your finances. What it did for me for that time period.
So children cost money because once you've had children, you can't really go to work so much and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's hard, especially when they're really young.
Like look after them and all that. Then if you want to go out, you'd have to pay for a babysitter or and so on.
But because you're talking about money during the whole shutdown thing, I know I said it before, but during the shutdown, we've seen one of the largest transferences of wealth in in modern day history. And a large majority of billionaires and billion-dollar companies are the ones that profited the most during the whole shutdown.
Especially the glove company.
Yeah.
Glove company.
Yeah. But not only that, these pharmaceutical companies, the Pfizers, the Modernas, all these different companies that are producing these vaccines way ahead of time because they knew what was going to happen. They already had these vaccines, they were already working on these things and had them ready to roll out for when this thing happened. Because there's no way that you can have 94 million vaccines ready to roll out and to go if it's not already pre-prepared. What 94 million is. How many vaccines? Think about 94 million vials of a vaccine. It's you have to. It was already in the works. Let's say. So a large majority of these companies are the ones that made huge amounts of profits, while a lot of other people suffered. Small businesses suffered, and a lot of people that weren't able to work during those times, people that were self-employed, Say for example, if you were a self-employed electrician or plumber or any of these things during these times, you weren't allowed to work. And you had to rely on the government going, we're going to give you a certain amount of money in benefit that you can survive every month off of. We'll pay your rent for you, and we give you a little bit of money that you can go to the supermarket and buy some shopping and whatever else, pay a few bills, and that's it. You know, we're not going to give you what you're using.
I think they were running plumbers and all that.
No, there was a time period. There was a very, at least
maybe short, yeah.
The first 6 months,
maybe,
at least.
Yeah,
the first 6 months.
So I did have a plumber come here.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It was probably.
But the first 6 months, the initial 6 months.
He was wearing a mask, you know, so I can remember him coming, but probably once the 6 months was over.
Well, what happened after the first 6 months, there was a review, and then the review was saying, okay, we need to slowly try to get back to work, get everyone kind of back into work, back to normal, and then the whole thing come up about social distancing and the whole, you know, 6 feet apart, 2 meters apart, and you know.
I felt like I was at school again. Especially when I went shopping and all that, because I'd go around the charity shops and they had these little footprints and, you know, like they put sellotape on the floor and saying you've got to go this way.
It made me feel like I was even more in the Matrix.
Yeah.
Let's put it like that. That's how it made me feel. I remember I even made a video that I showed to you a few years ago that I even posted online and it made loads of people laugh and shit. But I remember when it first happened, I couldn't believe it. I just stood in the line and I just was in disbelief, mate, to the point where I just had to take out my phone and I just like made a video saying, "Look at this shit." You know, people were looking at me like I was crazy, but and then I was looking at people like they were crazy. Like I'm stood there with this video with my phone, thinking I've got to make a video because this is mind blowing. Like people are lined up here like bloody sheep.
I mean,
and there's someone at the door going, 2 people at a time. There's only 2 people in and allowed at a time in a whole supermarket. Meanwhile, there's 25 people outside lined up 2 meters apart. So you can imagine on our small little New Milton road going down there on the high street, people down to almost down to the stoplights, mate, to the bloody traffic lights. People waiting to go to the supermarket. Ridiculous. And I just had to make a video thinking to myself, am I the only one that think that this is
No, you weren't. I was one.
Yeah.
You know,
I stood there for like...
you can't do nothing about it, you just got to
accept it. Yeah.
You know, and I personally, I think that shutting down all the shops, like that, you know, and all that, and panicking, basically.
Yeah.
Saying, right, we're shutting down everything.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's on purpose, planned a long time ago, pandemic. Yeah.
Pandemic, that's it.
Right, but that's my personal view. I might not be right.
Yeah.
Okay. And also, shutting down like that caused more mental problems than and deaths than the actual virus. That's what I think. But you know, and then when people did die, for one reason or another, or even just dying of loneliness in their house, and you know, like worrying so much, because my brother told me, you know, cause he used to deliver sort of electric beds and things,
equipment and shit.
You know, not during the shutdown. You know, this lady didn't want him to come in and all this. You know,
scared.
She was so panicky. You know, and some of these people have heart attacks. You know, some of these old people. You know,
and a lot of it's in news too. A lot of the media have a lot to play. The media have a big role to blame for that as well. A lot of the fear mongering that they perpetuate. You know, doesn't help, especially with the older generation who are, you know, hooked on the news. A lot of them watch it religiously, read the papers and watch the news religiously, day and night, both in the mornings and at night, you know, to see what's going on, you know, the updates. So
I'm very against having the injection.
Yeah,
I will not. I don't even like tattoos.
Yeah.
Right? And that's I don't like pins going in my body.
Well, I was going to say, I almost lost my job. I could have potentially lost my job during that time period because I refused. I had to go through the route of getting a medical exemption. And if only you knew how many people that I had to see in regards to it, how many conversations I had to have, how many.
From a doctor, you mean?
It took me about 4 months and numerous conversations with about 6 or 7 different people, about 2 or 3 times for each one, where I had conversations with them saying, this is why I don't want it, etc., etc., but I need an exemption because of my job. You know, I need an exemption in order to still continue to work without having it. Mate, they gave me the runaround like no one's business. They did not want to give it to me. but I must say kudos to one of my and a big appreciation to her. One of the manager of the place where I was working, the head manager of where I was working at the time. She helped me considerably as well. You know, she helped me in the process of, you know, telling the people, listen, I'm willing for him to continue to work here. I just want you to give him the exemption so that he can continue to work. It doesn't. She could care less whether or not I had it, and she really helped me out a lot. But in a lot of places, a lot of nurses, a lot of healthcare professionals lost their jobs because of it.
Yeah, I think it was a nightmare for a lot of people out there.
So,
yeah. You know, some people committing suicide, some people losing their jobs, so on and so on. You know, and I think I think it's crazy. I think in a kind of way it needed shutting down.
Yeah.
Because people were crazy, and I don't know. I mean, they need. Like I said, keep saying, you know, the rich really are getting away with everything.
Oh yeah.
And they're the ones that, you know, like I said, if you put a maximum wage on everyone, it would balance everything out.
Well,
I personally feel
they would never want that though.
No, that's it. But it is the answer to it's the answer to the problem. You see.
Yeah.
I think, you know, like
the elite though would be restricted then.
If the government said, right, only £100 an hour at the most.
Yeah.
And you're only allowed 1 acre of land at the most, and 1 house.
Yeah.
That's it. You can have what house you want on that acre. Okay. You know, as long as it's not too high, maybe. You know, you've got to have certain rules for everyone. Yeah. And if everyone had those rules, it's like blackjack, for instance. Yeah. You know, like that game I was talking about, gambling. We're talking about money. And all that.
Yeah.
But that, you know, you've got the dealer there, and he's dealing out, and the rules just work. You know, there's rules to the game.
Oh, yeah.
And the dealer never loses, do you know what I mean? You know, at the end of the day, you know. But it's kind of the same thing, you know, like if you had a rule on, because money is very important, we all use it every day.
Yeah.
You know, and it needs control.
Yeah.
And people need control as well. But the thing is, like I say, they won't put that rule on it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there's other people, you know, the real rich people will not do that, do you know what I mean? Because they love their life as it is, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You know, and I just don't understand greed, you know, we're not here for long. You know, and you think, like, greed in the Bible, it's really completely against, you know, Bible's against greed, isn't it? You know, whatever. But here we are, we're living in the world of greed, if you ask me.
Yeah.
You know, there's no rules on money, for one, you know.
Yeah.
There's no one controlling the rich.
Yeah.
If you sort of mean. And I feel that's what you know really needs in this world, the rich to be controlled and put in their place.
Yeah.
Then they should be happy with what they got.
Yeah.
So we're not here for long. We're only here temporarily, and we can all leave our children in a beautiful world. You know, I think like in the world we're living in today, it's like a rich person with their lovely house and 2 children and that. And he's doing the best for his children. He don't want them to mix with them over there in the estate. You know?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff, you know. And it's, you know, we need to live in the same world.
Yeah.
If you ask me, you know, like houses, you know, because here in this particular city where I live, you've got the house and estate there for the poorer people over there. Richer people live on the seaside there.
Down by the sea, yeah.
You know, and these houses over here are all sort of like, you know,
the working
for
class.
the middle class, you know, a bit, whatever.
Well, I say there's not much of a middle class anymore, is there?
Well, there's not, you know, but like I'm saying, you know, it's not equal, is it? You know, and I think we should make houses more equal in a funny way, you know. And if like a child is born with a mother, they should be guaranteed a garden of some kind, you know. That would make that child a lot happier.
Yeah.
And the mother. Do you know what I mean? And the father, or whatever, you know. And you know, it's good philosophy, really. I feel like if a child's got a lot of space to play in, and enjoy life just like any other child, and every child's important. You know, it's going to make a better world, isn't it?
And it's also sad to see too that like just when people do get divided up into classes like that, you know, and their living circumstances differ based upon that. Like even like you said, like on the north side of our city, where we live, the north part of it is associated with having, like you said, council housing and being more of a rough area for the poor, more of the rough
people that are struggling.
And then the other part of it, like you said, you've got the kind of like the middle of the town or the city, whatever however you want to look at it, is more working class, and people have got slightly better living standards and circumstances. And then, like you said, to the south, you kind of got all the richer people living down by the seaside, and where it's outside of the town, where it's quieter and nicer and less crime and less just a nice environment, if you see what I mean. Nicer houses, more expensive houses, and like even going down Barton Court Avenue, when you get down to the bottom of that road, there by Lidl there, and you go down that road there, and you start to go down from there onwards, you can start to see the difference in housing in comparison
huge houses.
Yeah, huge houses, electronic gates, all sorts of things. Cost millions, exactly.
You think, how did they get them?
Exactly.
And there's a little old lady there, sort of cutting the, cutting the roses or whatever, and you think, how did she?
Yeah. And then you go 5 minutes up the road, it's a different story. It's it's slightly different. It's different. Even like, okay, that to the top of Barton Court Road there, you've got a little estate there, haven't you?
Yeah.
Where you go just before you go down that long road that goes down to Lidl, that goes all the way down to Lidl and then goes across further down to Barton Court Avenue. You've got that little estate there as well, don't you? Like a little.
Yeah.
I don't know what they call it, but you can tell the difference if you see what I mean.
So I don't like the monopoly of it all. Like all this housing estates everywhere.
Yeah.
Especially in our town, we've got everywhere, like these shops that's trying to sell houses basically. And I don't think
you've got loads. Yeah.
Nobody can afford them. Well, I can't anyway. Maybe some the old people can, but it kind of like puts a jealousy on the system, I think, in a funny way, where people wish they could have a house.
I think a lot of people can afford them, mate, because when you think about it, so many letting agents, mate, and they've been around for a long time, they've got to be making money.
Well, I do think some people can afford them.
They've got to be making money, mate, because usually there's,
Well, I think there's some people that can.
Right.
Right? Some people got money, and there's a lot of people that haven't, really, at the end of the day.
But let's be honest, these houses that we're talking about here, like you said, 5 minutes down the road from where we live, you go down there, like you're talking millions about, like you've got to have different type of money. If you're spending like a couple of million on a house, you've got to have a lot more than that in the bank, aren't you? You're not going to spend all your money just on one house, are you? And then be bankrupt, are you? So it's a different level of money.
Sometimes it depends on your situation, like for instance, if you're a doctor, and then you marry a doctor as well, right, and you've got two doctors earning lots of money here, right, and then they put their money together a bit, because they're happy together, they plan to get married, and their eyes, sometimes your eyes are bigger than your belly a little bit, in a kind of way. You think, we're going to take this on because we can afford it, and they don't really need a big house, I think, and they, anyway, sometimes it all goes wrong because they got a bit, too much, if you know what I mean. It's all to do with greed, we're all, at the end of the day, we're all greedy, even though I am.
Yeah.
I think you've got to be a bit greedy to survive. But I think, like, if you put control on greed, is the answer to the question. Like I said, if you put maximum wage, you got a minimum wage. You've got that one, haven't you? You've got that rule. So why can't you put maximum wage on? It can be done. It's just that they're not doing it.
No, of course not. No.
They're not changing the rules. I know it's not easy to change rules. Like for instance, cigarettes. They're in the shops today, but I think they really, really want to one day take them out of the shops.
I think, well, I was going to say they're trying, aren't they?
People don't want it, do they? People enjoy smoking, and people will get angry. If it's not in the shops, if you see what I mean.
Well, they'll find another way to get it. Anytime you remove something anytime there's a demand for anything, and you cut off the supply, someone else will come along and supply that demand. So what will happen is there end up being a black market for tobacco products, essentially. Cigarettes and tobacco pouches and etc. That's all that would happen. It's like before they made alcohol legal, it was a huge black market for illegal alcohol. That's where the whole story of Al Capone and all these stories, these people come in of, he was heavily involved in the early black market trade of alcohol, and his story was based around that, let's say, for example. You know, a lot of people have heard about Al Capone. So yeah, you just create essentially a black market for, you know, tobacco. Yeah.
But I just wish sometimes it wasn't. You've got to look at the world if it wasn't, you know, if the plant didn't exist.
Yeah.
For instance, or you know, how this world would have been different today.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Tobacco plant never existed, say.
Yeah.
Things like that, you know, or alcohol. If it didn't exist, you didn't ever come across it. You know, it wouldn't, you know, this world would be a lot different today. That's all I'd say. You know?
Yeah.
I think people would be a lot richer today.
Yeah, it's true.
As well.
Yeah.
In a funny way, it does make people poorer.
Yeah.
I think, in a funny way.
It does. Yeah.
You know, even I'm having a drink today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I enjoy having an occasional drink.
Yes.
You know? So I'm not putting it. You know.
Not opposed.
I'm not opposed to alcohol and people drinking it. But I think they should have. You know, you've got to have control on it. And I think
be sensible.
You know, just like money. You know,
Yeah.
if I had a lot of money, you'd have to be really sensible.
It's still got to be sensible, yeah. Otherwise, you can still lose it all. There's
Yeah.
plenty of people out there.
It's easy to spend money.
We've heard plenty of people's stories out there that have had loads of money and lost it all, lost everything.
Of course, there's many. I think there's millions of stories out there.
Loads of stories, because sometimes people start to get a certain amount of money and think that it's going to continue like that forever. And then when it slows down, they have to start selling their properties and stuff because they can't afford to upkeep it anymore. You know, imagine buying a property that's like 5-10 million. Let's say you live in America and you buy a house that's worth $5-10 million, yeah, and then your maintenance of that house, let's say, is $15,000 to $20,000 a month. In your cleaners, your gardeners, you name it. Let's say, for example, you know, people that cook, clean, you know, whatever, help out, nannies, whatever, and then money starts slowing up. You know, you no longer the big celebrity you once were. Let's say, for example, if you were a celebrity, and then people have been very frivolous with their money and spent loads of it and bought loads of shit, and then, you know, they end up realizing that, you know what, this is a continuing debate. I thought it was going to continue, you know, and then they have to start downsizing and selling shit and, you know, living within their means, you know, because it's, yeah, like you said, it's just being smart, isn't it? It's just being sensible, really, and being, you know.
So I'm trying to throw stuff out. You know, I think I've got about 200 t-shirts. You know, and it's about 200.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a joke, you know. And I think, yeah, it's a bit of a joke, you know. And you think, hang on, you know, better give some away or throw it away. Do you know what I mean? You know, it's time to, you know, because I think, like, if you sort of like, what do you call it? Sort of like, just don't have many things.
Yeah.
You know? What do you call it when you're
well, I guess living very minimalist, isn't
that's
it?
That's the word I'm trying to think. Yeah, tidy and, you know, and just very. I think you'll find happiness is when you sort of like end up going out buying things that you fall in love with, bringing them home, putting them in the cupboard, then going out next day, seeing something else, buying it, you know, putting it in the cupboard, and then you look in the cupboard and you forget you got it. You know, that's what people do. You know, a lot of people are like that. You know, they fall in love with something they see and think, I'm going to buy that. You know? And you know, they ended up sort of like ending up with lots of things around them and not enjoying life anymore. You know.
It's true.
I mean, even I've been like that in the past, you know, because I mean, I used to do house clearances, you see, and removals, and sometimes with my house clearances, I got a huge amount of stuff. You know, sometimes I got a job where someone might have passed away, you know, an old lady or something. And somebody's paid for us to clear the house out, you know. And I get loads of food, loads of bits and pieces, you know. And then I can, you know, we had to either throw it away on the dump, but my boss didn't like us doing that because that costs money. And rubbish costs money, by the way, these days. It costs a fortune to get rid of any rubbish. So Rob was quite happy for us to have anything we wanted, if you see what I mean. My old boss.
It'd be less to get rid of.
The more we took, the less it would cost them to dump. If you see what I mean. So I'd get lots of bits and pieces, and I'd give bits and pieces to tell people, you know, my friends and whatever, you know. You know, sometimes I'd come home with lots of food. And things, you know, like bags of food, all kinds of things, you know. And I accumulated loads of stuff, even when I was married, you know what I mean, I was doing it, and I just accumulated loads of stuff quickly. And I thought, sick of it,
Yeah.
I'm sick of all this stuff, you know, and I am today, you know, in the kind of way, you know, and you know, I mean, I've got some nice things in my life, you know, like that TV screen is nice or whatever, but at the end of the day, you know, I mean, it would make me unhappy if it broke this tomorrow. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd have to buy a new one.
Yeah.
You know, so, but I'm not in love with my things.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I think it's important not to love your things, because if you forget about loving your things, you start loving real things.
Yeah. What's important?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah. Try not to get distracted by.
You know, you need these objects like a teaspoon. You know,
Yeah.
to stir your
You need the essentials.
You know, to stir it to your jobs. You know, and you know, if I lost all my teaspoons, I'd have to get another one. You know, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so there are things that you do need in life.
Yeah.
You need to buy. Yeah, they end up having 5 cars. Some people, and they go well over the top, and they don't realise it. You see, they don't realise the actual understanding that you don't need all this stuff. If you sort of mean.
Yeah.
If you get rid of it and give it away, you'd probably make yourself a lot happier.
Yeah.
And you know, be honest, I don't really want anything in life anymore. Do you know what I mean? You know, I don't. You know, if I come into a lot of money,
Yeah.
the only thing I would want really is just to buy my home. Really, just to secure my future. And I think that's what everybody's really looking for.
It's after.
Everyone's looking for security in life.
Yeah.
You know, so it does make you happier, doesn't it? You know,
It
I mean, if you had a lot of money, right? You know, like a dream bank account, you can put your feet up, can't you?
It can. Yeah.
And that's full stop. And you know, whoever you're married to, that's going to make them a lot happier too. And they're probably more likely to stay with you forever as well because you've got money. You know, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It does change the perspective of things, doesn't it? Or yeah.
That's true. Anyway, mate, before we wrap it up and call it a night for this week's episode, all about
money.
Any final words, any closing statements, anything you want to leave with the people before we, you know, wrap it up and call it a night?
Well, I don't think, you know, we talked about money quite a lot, I suppose. Sometimes about the virus, whatever, but I suppose it all kind of linked.
Yeah.
Another.
Yeah.
But, you know, I hope that, you know, we all need money.
Yeah.
And just try to be rich by getting rid of things. I think, like, the more you get rid of sometimes, the richer you become. You know, the less you've got.
The less you, the less you...
Well, you ain't got to worry about, you see.
Well, sometimes people just, like you said, sometimes people become hoarders and they just...
But, you know, it is really, you know, today, in this day, in this modern world we're living in, you've got to have your own home.
Yes, yeah.
You know, and it is good to own it, isn't it? You know?
Yes.
You know, and I don't think like everybody in this world is in those circumstances, unfortunately. I mean, they're too difficult, aren't they? Too expensive, really, isn't it, to own a bit of land with a home on it? You know, and it's what everybody dreams of, really.
Yeah.
Just own a bit of land so you can put a garden on it.
Yeah.
You know, because everybody loves a garden. You know, I mean, I'm not so over. You know, I used to have a garden, okay, and I lost it, whatever, and I wouldn't want it back again.
Yeah.
What about that? You know. If I had a child, yes.
Yeah.
It'd be a different story. I'd want a garden, you know, if I had a child with someone, but at the end of the day, I don't want one now.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you sort of mean. So I think like we all got different circumstances out here and different ideas and different beliefs.
Yeah. Different thoughts.
Yeah, about money or whatever, or gold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Anyway, guys, I hope you guys have enjoyed this week's episode. Of course, we'll be back again next week with a brand new episode, so please stay tuned for that. And yeah, we're the Philosophy Podcast. Good night. God bless. Save your money, because it might save you. Good night. One love.